Hello, everybody. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our show this afternoon. And today, this is my husband, Keith. For those of you who don't know who he is, he has agreed to come on here and talk with me today about Dr. David Hawkins and some of his ideas. And I've expressed some of these ideas in other tapes that I've done. But Dr. David Hawkins was responsible for um, discussing how we can calibrate our consciousness by doing some muscle testing. So I wanted Keith here for that reason, and that initially, and then I remembered that he was the one that even introduced me to Dr. Hawkins. So hello, Keith. Say hello to the people.
Hello. So let me tell everybody what he did. He calibrated consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
and he created, just arbitrarily chose two standards. The number one he assigned to any one-celled entity like a virus or a bacteria. He assigned that number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, he has the Christ consciousness, which
Mm-hmm.
would also include Buddha and the other ascended masters as well. He gave
Uh-huh.
that energy a number of 1,000. That's
Okay.
his
Oh, so
scale.
he's the one that came up with this numbering system. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
he used that to calibrate anything and everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And I found it very, very interesting.
Sure, sure. So back about this time when the first book came out, which is Power versus Force, and Dr. Hawkins has passed away. He died in 2012. But during that period of time, there was the first book that came out was Power versus Force. And I didn't read it because I thought it was too scientific for my brain. But Keith read it and he kept telling me about it and telling me about it as he was reading it along, how different calibrations are for different religions or different
Countries.
feelings. Yeah, different countries, different religions, everything. Yes. And one of the things was, shame and guilt. You could do that too, right? I mean, you can do,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And so he, um, he wrote that book and then he ended up writing, I don't know, probably 10, 15 more books. And I found this one, which was In the World but Not of It, transforming our everyday experience into a spiritual path. And so, what I wanted to do was, I wanted to let you know about this. I wanted him to explain to you. Oh, you read it. Oh, goody, goody. I'm glad, Claudia. That's wonderful. And yeah, hi, Mary. Hi, Randy. Hi, Warrior Girl. Hi, Ivana. And glad you're all here. Thank you for being here. Um, and Carolyn, I think I saw you too. Welcome, welcome. Um, but when I was reading this book last night to finish it, what struck me the most was how important it would be for me to let you know what he said with regard to, let's say, the MAGA mind. Now, remember, he died in 2012, so he had no idea what the MAGA mind, but he says that a lot of people here calibrate at under 200. So, like he said, it starts with a
Well,
virus,
but the
and
United States, if I remember correctly, the U.S. calibrated overall well over 400
uh-huh,
on that
yes,
scale I
that's
just
right. Yep.
presented.
In
Um,
1980. In
and
1980.
the countries that were lowest down, um, oh God, it's been so long, I can't remember. I think Iran was one, and North Korea,
Hmm.
the usual
Yeah.
suspects.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it depends upon also the calibration of that particular society, which would bring that whole society down. But he was saying here before he died that we were at the highest as a society in the 80s, and we've done nothing but go down since.
But
And he,
tell everybody what you read about the actual Constitution, what
Yes,
does
I
it
will. I
calibrate?
will. But I wanted you to know that some of us who are on the spiritual path, we probably we aren't 700-800 probably, not a lot of us are, but we are maybe 400 or 500. But other people who don't do any kind of work and they just kind of live here, and I would say maybe are the MAGAs or the red people, they're under 200. So right there we've got an inequity. But here's the real thing that's really something else I just found out. He did it for the Constitution. The Constitution was written in the Age of Enlightenment, where we had all these people putting everything together and working together to create this really powerful document. The Constitution calibrates at the level 700. So if you've got 700 and you've got 200 or less, you can understand why there's no love, let's say, for the Constitution from the lower part of society.
And there's something else you need to
Mhm.
know. Dr. Hawkins said any calibration under 200
Yep.
was not did not have integrity.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Absolutely. It doesn't have and all I could think of when I was reading this was, you don't know this because Keith had sent this to me yet last night, and you know who, the orange man, he whose name I do not wish to put in my mouth, he has just filed using AI a document with the Supreme Court asking them to make the President of the United States a king. And
Well, it doesn't exactly say that, but that's what the outcome
that's what
would
it
be.
is. Yeah, that's what it is. In other words, the person, all the stops are pulled out. You don't have the Congress probably that tells you to take for this, or you don't have the Senate for that, or you don't have this or that. And it just tells me how much the integrity of the Constitution in the eyes of those people. And it also tells me, what is it, under 200 also, I believe, is a cult. It's cult mind.
Oh, I hadn't read that.
Yes, yes. So you've got these people down here, and we're not better than anybody. Everybody's on their own individual path. All I want to say is, though, it makes sense why we don't understand each other. We're not vibrating at the same vibration. We aren't equal to and or working with each other because we have totally different mindsets, totally different vibrations. And it's important for us to know that, because I know that you're just as frustrated as I am about everything that's been going on. So when you are, tell them, first of all, explain what muscle testing does within the alternative medicine community, and then how you would use muscle testing for this particular question, let's say.
We always called it applied kinesiology,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is energy. We know that.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think something or you ingest something that is true, it's going
Yep.
to lift you up
Right.
and it's
Right.
going to make you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
If something is untrue, it's going to tear you down.
Sure. Sure.
So
That's very
muscle testing is, um, I can't find my words. You challenge the muscle, and then you make the statement or the thought or whatever it is you're trying to test, and then you immediately test that muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's true, the muscle is going to stay strong.
Right.
If it is false, your body's going to know that. Not you, but your subconscious, your spirit will know that, and it will go
Mm-hmm.
weak. And
Mm-hmm.
try as hard as you may, you're not going to be able to hold that up.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so you're putting your arms straight out, right?
You don't have to use the arm. You can use
Oh,
any muscle.
okay. But let's say it's the arm, just to help people understand it. If the arm is out and you are the one that's doing the testing, you would say, okay, we're going to just test regular, right? Don't you do a regular test first?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're going to say, for instance, Donald Trump is a wonderful president. And then you're going to see where that goes, right? So,
You
but
said the name.
I know, but would you get different, you'd get different responses though, wouldn't you, from different vibrations? So if you did it with somebody that was of a
That's
lower
why I
vibration?
said what I said. If you
Okay.
are
Okay.
not in integrity,
Yeah.
you can't muscle test. You're going to be weak no matter what.
Okay. Okay.
You have
So
to
what
be
you're saying
over
is
200.
you wouldn't be a good person to do muscle testing on.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So you've done that before. That's cool. Sorry, Diana. We love you. She just washed my mouth out with soap because I said his name.
Yeah, you
Um,
should have.
I know. This is interesting. Randy had an interaction with a man on the beach today. He wanted to be right and not allow for another point of view. I bet his muscles
I'm sorry,
wouldn't.
the man on the beach.
Yeah, the man on the beach. He wanted to be right and not allow for, and that's exactly it, because they have no argument except to argue. If you it's like I don't really have. And then they said there was something else I wanted to bring up that I felt was really, really important, and it was about opinion and let's see if I can find it. Oh, this is interesting too. The law of attraction is only calibrates at 250. I thought that was I thought it would have calibrated.
Really?
Yeah. But it says that intention increases the likeliness of what is held in your mind. And so he says 400 is the domain of reasoning. So all of us here that think about things, that check things out, that work with our brains, that try to figure out the truth, we're at least 400 because you're using your reason. And so that's going to be very important. We all have our own personal calibration, and the higher our calibration is, the more likely we are to be able to manifest whatever we want, which really blows my mind, but it makes sense at the same time. So,
Do they have a little chart in that most recent book with the most
no,
current
nope.
calibrations?
But I've got this new book, everybody. This one is the Map of Consciousness Explained, and it's a pretty thick one. But in the very back, it tells you how you do your muscle testing if you want to ever try it. But yes, there should be a
Well,
well,
there
this is
was one in one of the other
oh, in
books
the
that I
other
read.
one. Yeah.
I would like to know what the Democratic Party and the Republican Party
Oh,
calibrate.
yeah. I don't know if they have, let's see. They have teachers and writings. Let's see. They have a lot of spiritual stuff in here. Walking a Labyrinth. I don't know if they have the Democratic Party. Let's see. All right. No. The Declaration of Independence, though, on page 50, which really tells me everything I need to know, is one of those things that the columns on the map show the view of God at each consciousness, and each level has its own understanding of God. And the map is also a column for one life that you might have. It's pretty complicated. Some of you who are scientific, like Claudia, you said you read it, but I know that I was always sort of intimidated by it until I really just said to myself, wow, I don't think this is really intimidating. I think that I just thought it was. Let me see if I can find that other thing that I had that I wanted. People in a cult vibrate under 200. A mystic is aware of an absolute truth without having to go through a process to reach it. So they're up in 700 or 800. And I would say that people that are highly spiritual teachers. They don't really need, they don't need to do book learning. They have that automatic idea in their own minds. Let's see. And the other thing he said was there's no time track in consciousness, which we already know. Past, present, and future are all now. There is no past, there is no present, there's only, I'm sorry, there is no future, there's only what there is right now, which, I like that he brought that up. He says that the biggest problem we have in society at this point is that, and this was before 2012, is social media, memes, phrases that spread without any regard for truth, repetition of things that are accepted as truth, but is really indoctrination, over and over and over again, right? We know who does that. He uses, remember when he who should not be named said, the only reason we have high COVID rates is because people are being tested. Remember that? It's just, it's crazy. But all is energized by intention. And if we don't use our discernment, we then naively believe all things that we see or hear. And so he says that narcissism is ruled by your viewpoint. That was the man on the beach. Spirituality seeks truth for its own sake. So totally different. So the man on the beach you weren't going to ever win that argument. Not at all. What I really loved about this too is about creativity, calibration of creativity. He says, and he is a doctor, he's a medical doctor, and
a PhD.
And a PhD, that's right. He was saying something very, very profound for a man who was a medical doctor. That would be allopathic, which means, you go to the regular doctor. He's not an alternative medicine person. He isn't an acupuncturist or chiropractor or massage therapist, none of that. He says patient recovery has intention results as well. And if a practitioner intends to do all they can do to help a patient recover, there's a higher patient success rate. Allopathic medicine calibrates at 440. But other more creative modalities are usually 450 and higher. I thought that was pretty cool.
I kind of like that.
Well, you've had patients come in and their doctors have said, no, you can't do anything about what you need done. And they're going to operate on me or whatever they're going to do. And you're like, let's try this first. And it's almost as though the doctor has given up on them. And that happens.
What drives me absolutely insane is when the patient comes in and the last doctor said it was all in their head.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, my God. If I heard that, I'd be a rich man if I got $100 for every time I heard that.
Really?
Oh, it's horrible. Drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Talk about not being listened to, not being seen.
The reason this happens is because these people are operating at a higher spiritual level, and successful recovery depends on open-mindedness and alternative modalities. Bring higher success rates because the practitioners are more open than socially accepted practices like Western medicine. So I'm not here to get any converts, but all I wanted to bring up was the fact that any doctor who tells you, that you can never do this, and we've seen it all the time. You'll never walk again. You'll never be able to do this. You'll never be able to do that. And oh, that's cool, Jane. Yeah. Oh, really? A chiropractor gave your life back, Claudia? We are talking about calibration of consciousness and muscle testing for the calibration of consciousness in the works of David Hawkins. So just so everybody knows, as we're sitting here, and for those who came in late, this is my husband, Keith, who used to do the show with me 3 years ago. And I asked him to come on because he's the doctor and he explained what he could about muscle testing. So that was very important. Negativity. Let's talk about negativity for a minute with regard to vibration and higher. You know, you just said if you're negative and you do the test, or if it's a negative thought,
It's going to make you weaker.
You're going to make you weaker. So negativity, bringing negativity to any kind of technological, like social media or media in general, events calibrate at 70 to 90. That's it. And they're popular because they keep the attention of viewers because everybody's riveted by negativity, just like some of the cult people are. Integrity, sincerity, and other virtues like truthfulness calibrated at a higher consciousness level. And it says that this is what it was like during the 40s when the men in the service were considered to be a band of brothers. They united for something. And of course, you know, we've done nothing but divide and divide and divide since then. So, hey, Wayne. Yeah. So today's society calibrates at 200. We don't, excuses are made, and our society is pretty devalued. You get a lot of things, you know, devalued.
Wait, back up.
Yep.
Are you saying the United States has fallen from over 400 now down to?
It went in the 80s, it was at a peak. And then Reagan came in and it went boop, 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 down to 200, under 200 in some cases. Yeah. Yep. So this, I mean, the thing that's so important is that when you have these different calibrations, it's the same way I was explaining this morning. It's the same way when you're trying to reach somebody on the other side, and they want to come. They want you to hear them, but it takes them a lot of energy for them to come. They can't come down to your level. You have to go up to their level, and you know you may be close. You may not be right at their level, but in order to communicate with the other side, you have to be able to be at their level because it's the vibration that's being brought up. And that's how that works. And you're right, Diana. No wonder I don't. It's why we don't go out. That's why we don't function well in crowds. We're being sucked in. It's almost like a vampire. You know, it's like that energy is so bad and so draining. So I do want to make something very clear, though. That I think the media is treated as the enemy, but it's just the mechanism, not the origin. The origin is in the mind of these people that are doing the negative, that are bringing the negative events that they have to cover. So instead of us damning the media, saying, oh, the media this and the media that, well, in case of somebody like Tucker Carlson, you know, he came right down. He came right down to that level. Honestly, he really did. And he felt comfortable in that level. And that's where he stayed. So, yeah, he said collective consciousness hit a high in the 80s. It spiraled downward. Media and technology have played a part in the trend. There's a tendency to view negative events. And our war mind has resulted in us being at war 93% of the time. That's what he said. So I'm reading this 2 nights ago, I'm reading this. And I wake up in the morning and I turn on the television set and what Israel and Hamas and all of that stuff going on. And I thought that's got to be calibrating at a very low level. And so, yeah. You can understand why the GOP, but here's a question, and just ponder on it for a minute, using your own intelligence here. Ron DeSantis went to Harvard, I believe, and so did Ted Cruz, and so did Josh Hawley. All right. But their constituency is low. And so I don't think it is all about intelligence. I think it's about integrity. I think it's about intention. And politicians only resonate. This is politics is 200. Science is 400. So, it's alignment with the truth, and they're not able to align with the truth because it's all about their ego. So, so what do you think? Do you think he's just living this complete lie? Any thoughts?
Which one? Holly?
You. Do you have any thoughts about why he would bring himself? Ron. Ron. Let's say Ron. Yeah.
I think it all boils down to money, myself.
And that is energy.
Money and power.
Money and power. So it doesn't matter if you go to school and you go to Harvard and you get a Harvard degree and you're. The other thing I heard about him, though, was he used to be a JAG lawyer. Did you know that?
Wow.
Huh.
I did not know that.
He brought himself. Oh, good. Yeah, good. Yep, Power and Money. Yes, you can get these books, David Hawkins books on Audible. They're on Kindle. And the one I got that I started out with, which a lot of people don't like to read a lot. So that's why I bought this one, In the World But Not of It. And I really liked it because I think there's less than 75 pages of information. So anybody can get through that. The Almighty Dollar. That's right, Warrior Girl. You're absolutely right. He says, and this is back in 2012 again, everything has become politicized. The language, the words, every inflection and gesture is now politicized. And you have to be careful how you phrase things, because if you use one word wrong, that's it. Gotcha, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are also ascending.
Well, we are, yes. Uh-huh.
So are we not talking about those who have decided not to come along for the ride and they want to stay in the old energy?
Well, we haven't. Part of the problem is that it actually seems more like judgment, like us saying, well, those people they're just dummies, they were going to stay behind or whatever, which isn't really what it is. A lot of it has to do with their lifetime sacred contracts.
But we have free will, and
we
they
do
can choose not to come along with the new energy.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, so Warrior Girl, you wanted to know about the Catholic Church. Let's see. This is pretty interesting because he wasn't he said calibration levels do not indicate that one level is better than the other, just different. Kind of like the selection of clubs when you're playing golf, which depends on which one is going to putt, chip, or drive.
Well, so another way to look at it is colors.
Okay.
Colors have vibration.
Yeah.
And the difference between red and green is that one of them vibrates at this frequency, the other one at this one. And that's what we're talking about. It's not that one is any better than the other. They're just different frequencies.
Right. Yep. Well, so here's what I get for let's see, closest thing, the Lord's Prayer, 650 calibrates. Gregorian chants, 595. But here's one, sweat lodge ceremony, right? 560. Smudging, 520. And we're always saying smudge things, it brings up the vibration. A near-death experience is 520. Enlightenment is 600. Communion is actually 700, according to this. But the Buddha nature, the Christ consciousness, and the supreme being are 1,000. And that's because he has, as Keith mentioned in the beginning, that's because when Hawkins did this, he started with the very smallest thing and he built a chart, and that's how he calibrated all of these things. And so it isn't anything that was sort of written in stone. It's kind of like how we developed, uh, how the alphabet was
Oh,
developed.
well, it was trial and error because he was
Trial and
a
error. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he taught, I think, in graduate school, and
Mm-hmm.
all of his graduate students were guinea pigs, every one of
Wow.
them. And he did this over years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, when you're looking at like the Buddhist Diamond Sutra and Heart Sutra, the Quran and the New Testament are all 700 to 790. Zen teachings, 795. Um, Genesis, it says 660. But when he's doing this, I think he's taking into consideration that these were written at the times and they were truths at the times. And so that's why they calibrated so much higher. You've had so many near-death experiences, you stop counting. Oh my God,
Would
39.
would somebody in the chat team up with somebody else and muscle test to see what
Yeah,
the current
right.
Democratic Party and the current Republican Party, what do they calibrate as, please?
Honey, I don't know. A lot of these people live alone. So just see what you could do. If you have somebody there and you can try it, that would be awesome. It really would. Um, let's see. Here's when you know you're at a very high consciousness. And I was surprised by this myself, and I thought this was information I needed to know. At the higher levels of consciousness, people believe they don't need anything and they don't want anything. That everything that they already currently have is enough. And so it says letting go of desire means you're less controllable, you're more grateful and thankful, and your vibration increases and reaffirms the value of that which brings integrity, which is one of the highest ones, is integrity. You've got anybody here that knows Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but your dogs are no help. Muscle test on them. Yeah, you could use your fingers. You could. You're right. You could use your fingers as a link. So you say, okay, this is my normal. All right. And then I say the Republican Party. Republican Party. I can pull
No,
it.
you have to make a statement. The Republican Party calibrates over 200.
Okay. Does the Republican Party calibrates over 200? It's right there. It's right there. It feels like it's right there.
All
All
right.
right. Democratic Party.
Now,
The Democratic Party calibrates at 200. That's tighter. All right. The Democratic Party calibrates at 250. The Democratic Party calibrates at 300. Yeah, it's about 300. I get about 300. Yeah. Yes, I heard that. That's really sad, Jane. Cash Peters' cat died today, Olive.
oh,
So much love to her. Yeah. Cash Peters does muscle. I know he does. Yes, he does. Yeah, he does. But you can also add the calibration in with that, and you'll be able to see um, what levels that you feel that people are operating at. Let me see if there's anything else. One of the things that I thought about was at the time when he was calibrating how the new how media and things like that were at a certain level. We had no AI. We had no AI, not like we have today. So I can only imagine it's worse. What would you say about that, Keith? Anything?
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
We've got to fix everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They said that, there's been a lot of warnings that it's going to create a lot of problems for us if we don't. Let me see
Well,
if I can find.
this new motion filed by the former guy,
Yeah.
that's a perfect example. See, what you didn't really explain all of that whole process.
Then you do it.
What lawyers have done
Mm-hmm.
is they took all of the decisions and the judgments handed down by judges,
Mm-hmm.
and they put them in a artificial intelligence database.
Okay.
And then they go back and they ask the AI to construct an argument that will meet their criteria, that was
Right.
made for them. And that's what this new lawsuit, or not lawsuit, but motion is.
To
They
try to
use,
get the judges, the conservative judges, to the
they
wording
wrote
for them.
they
Yeah.
wrote this motion
Mm-hmm.
specifically with the 5 conservative judges on the
Yeah.
Supreme
In
Court
mind. Yeah.
in mind.
That's scary. That is scary. Wow. So, okay, Carolyn and Peter did theirs, and neither of us could keep your arms all the way up for Republicans, but they didn't move the Democratic Party. I love it. I love it.
Amen.
Yeah. And Diana got 300 for the Democrats in Michigan. So, yeah.
Well, we're good. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Yes. All right. I see that everybody's quite upset about Olive, and so let's just give a few minutes of attention to that and send Cash lots of love and lots of good energy for Olive as she passes over into the next realm. We have so many animal lovers here, and everybody adores Cash Peters as well. So please send out love and light to them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Isn't that aren't they supposed to take something up like within the next week, the Supreme Court?
They're in their new session, but I haven't read what their schedule is.
Okay.
Don't know.
Okay. Here's something that he said in the book that I thought was spot on as well. Perception is not reality, it's opinion. How you see the world is your opinion. What you perceive out there is a projection of what you are. A more advanced soul is interested in the actual essence of a thing or its absolute truth. That's where discernment comes in. Many people are so narcissistic that they cannot put their own preferences aside long enough to find out what the truth is. And that's why we get the argument over and over again. 400 calibration is someone motivated to understand the truth. That's simple right there. If you're motivated to want to understand the truth, then at the very least you calibrated a 400 level. And I liked knowing that. Truth is one thing. The position people take about the truth is another thing. There's a reality above subjectivity. A herd mentality. The leader is trying to rally the troops. Could be based on truth or illusion. To rise above divisions, we need to take all moral responsibility for ourselves, others, and superior powers. We're actually supposed to walk away and not argue with anybody. We're supposed to not have an opinion because that's
So,
all
like
it
the
is.
guy on the beach today, did you just walk away?
Well, she said she wasn't invested in winning anything. And
Yeah.
she said she felt it was a test for her. And that's beautiful. That's absolutely right. And it's hard to bite your tongue sometimes. But you're sort of saying, well, I'm working on what I'm doing. And so I can sort of prove to myself that I am able to withstand this and move on. You observed it. Thank you, Randy. You observed the situation. Absolutely. Perfect. That's exactly what you should be doing. Um, Everything you desire is something you project outside yourself. Whatever you're projecting, your desires or your frustrations, is due to the fact that you projected the reality of who you really are to something or someone out in the outer world and have assigned it a quality, a certain quality. And I thought, wow, because that's the judgment. That's because we've grown up with that judgment. You know, we always have that dual judgment. What do you think about this? Is it good or is it bad? Is it up? Is it down? It's all duality. And yeah, disconnection. That's beautiful. Um, the other thing that I found out maybe 10 years ago, if you have done the best you can, you don't need anybody else's approval.
Amen.
Yeah. Um, Hawkins, I think I've told you when people have said, what's my life purpose? And I've said, if you can be of service to others, then that's part of your life purpose. And if you can love, that's part of your life purpose. Hawkins says, um, the purpose of our lives is to facilitate our evolution of consciousness to a realization of our ultimate reality. Our world is merely a state of consciousness, and that's why past, present, and future are all at the same time. And that's why sometimes when we do readings, when we all do readings and we say to you, I'm reading this with the energy of the now. This is what's coming from all the outside circumstances. Because if you don't take those outside circumstances, tomorrow they could change dramatically. Because if you make certain decisions and you go down a certain circuitous path, you may have a totally different reading. And so, you know, it behooves us to remind people that with the energy and the thought field that you're in right now, that this is what the possibility is. But that possibility is all. That's why a lot of things don't come to pass, or they come to pass later. We talked about that yesterday on the show I was with. She was Sylvia was saying that some psychic had told her something, or an astrologer. That's what she said. Astrologer told her something, and she said it didn't happen, you know. And then 5 years later, it did. So there's no time. See, it was part of the plan. Yeah. That is why the present is all we will ever have. Yes, absolutely. It's a gift. That's why they call it the present, right? So I know it's been a long time since you read Hawkins' books, but you did read more than one of them. Did each book that you remember, was it like a different chapter or a different stairway to a different thing, or was it always about the same sort of information?
No, it's different facets.
It was different facets of it.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I remember that you told me in that other book, Power versus Force. I remember that they had all the religions. They had like Buddhism, Sufism,
Yes.
Christianity, this, that. And I remember that it was the mystical religions, I believe, like Sufism and maybe some of the other ones, that resonated higher because they were more spiritual than dogmatic.
They were more in integrity. Yes.
In integrity, right? In other words, you don't have to follow what I say or do. You can pretty much find out for yourself as you go along. But
Hmm.
yeah. But isn't that interesting? And certainly not linear. And that's why so many of us find ourselves sometimes in the midst of something. And we say to ourselves, wow, time is flying by, or time's too short, or, if you're waiting, and you're in a lot of pain and you're waiting for something, time is going to go very, very slow. I had to be somewhere yesterday, and I left a little bit too early to show up at the correct time. And I thought, well, if I go to get coffee, I'll be in one of those lines, and I'll have to sit there for a while, and then this will happen and that. Of course, I had no line. I was the front of the line. And so I got my coffee right away. So I was still early. And this is what happened yesterday. And then when I went home, the highways around here are all being redone and stuff. I took off at an exit, and Keith, you know where it is. It's in Hobart, and they're having a salmon festival. So it was I was stopped everywhere I went. So I had to turn around a lot. So time was messing with me. Oh, the day is dragging for you, Wildflower. Yeah. Oh, yes, Marina. It is that's our other dog. Just in case. I know it looks kind of crazy because you can only see the back of her head, but he is really worth reading, I believe. I really do. One of the things I'd like to bring up as well is the idea of transcending our small self. Transcending our small self into the bigger self. One with a small s, one with a capital S. The smaller self is selfish, greedy, self-centered, angry, and facilitates the big self, which is the capital S. The higher our self is in consciousness, the greater our happiness is. Loving is all equal, and it's harder to deceive a fully enlightened person, which makes sense because we can feel the integrity. We become that attuned to it. We don't need muscle tests. We know we can feel the integrity there. So, yeah. Does anybody have any questions about anything? We might not be able to answer them, but you can ask. I really can't say enough about it. We feel that, like I said, we have another plan to do another show together, and Keith had just decided he wanted to do that, and so then I came up with this first, and I liked it because.
Can I query everybody?
Sure, go ahead.
So I read Neil Howe and William Strauss's book, The Fourth Turning, back. It was published in '97, so I probably read it a couple of 3 years later. And then I just now got his latest book. William Strauss died in 2006, I think. Howe just published The Fourth Turning is here. And oh my God, it pissed me off. I was so mad.
Low vibration.
I know. I was mad. I slammed the book shut and almost wanted to throw it across the room. Because he's saying we've got. Okay, I guess I have to back up.
No, you don't want to say too much about it or it's going to not be any good. But what you want to say is that it talks about how our society is working right now.
It's talking about cycles.
Yeah.
Generational theory. Now, these two authors, by the way, are the ones who coined the name millennials.
Oh, okay.
They're the ones that came up with this, and that's now every generation has its own name.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's saying we have 10 more years of this before this cycle is over. And it's like, oh.
But you know what? I think we need to know about it, but not buy into it. That's what I think.
No. But what I came up with, what I would like to do is have a show on current events and talk about things that are happening on the planet from a generational standpoint.
Okay.
And then you and maybe some of the other readers can talk about or prognosticate how it's going to play out
Mm,
because we're still waiting for the catalyst to
right.
occur according to Howe and Strauss's generational theory.
Hmm.
There's a catalyst that we're still waiting for.
True. Yep. But you're
And
right. Hypnicity, we can't escape cycles. That's very, very true. That is, I mean, it, what we're seeing right now was prognosticated by the astrologers, because remember, this is the same energy that we were feeling during the country, when, and both the Civil War and when we were um, trying to get our country together. So this is, cycles are the wheel of fortune. Yeah, yeah. But it might be fun to digress and talk about them, some of the cycles. Yep. But yeah. Um, if you have, he talked about the first book, I believe it was one of the first tapes we ever did back in 2020, and he talked about the different um, cycles that were happening with what was going on in the world at the time, wasn't it? It was what was going on at the world, like during the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. Didn't it go like that?
yes,
Yeah.
essentially what they discovered,
Uh-huh.
they didn't make it up. They
Yep.
looked at the history and they discovered it.
Hmm.
Every fourth generation, we go through a crisis cycle.
Yep.
And we're in the middle of one right this exact second. That's why I got so pissed
Yeah,
off.
I understand.
Yeah.
We try, but this is what we do tend to try here, to create a new world, and so give our energy to something good. That I absolutely believe, that we, in the midst of all this mess, um, we can find the meaning that might be more positive. But I think it's still important for us to realize that there are things that are outside of our control that might be worth knowing about. That's all. Yep, I understand. I choose where I give my energy as well. Yep, the cycle of Saturn. I know a lot of people here don't watch the news, so cycle of Saturn brings us the rule, and the cycle of Jupiter brings us the expansion. Wonderful. That's great. Yeah. Yes, every generation has something. It's so funny. I was thinking about the fact that we become our parents in a lot of ways when our kids get older, and we complain about the younger people, and then they complain about the ones younger than them, and they complain about I mean, I've even seen it with my own kids. Oh, these teenagers, and it's really funny. Yeah. Oh, it started in 2008. Oh.
Yeah.
You know, this is very true. I do want to say this. I have found, if you watch what the plot lines were in different TV shows from different decades, you will see a pattern there as well. And the songs, of course, definitely. But I remember, like, one whole decade, we had a lot of shows that were goofy, like American Graffiti and Laverne and Shirley and Mork and Mindy, and then we had shows like Cops, and NCIS and this and that, and then we had westerns. Remember, we all had westerns, and it's almost as though there's a cycle within that cycle. So it's fairly cool. Yeah, every rose has its thorn. Yeah, I agree with this. I think this is why I brought that up about readings, that it's not only the potentiality, but it's also the possible timeline. There are some things on these timelines that can't be changed. At least you believe. I agree with that. And I remember back in the 2000s, or the 1990s, there was a lot of information about how the planet was going to have all kinds of earth changes. And we did have some, but nothing like we're having right now. And there was something that made the change. They said, if we could do this, then we could change it. And I think we did change it, but I think it's catching up with us now. So, yeah. Oh, yes. Reality shows as well. Definitely. So, yeah. Well, we're getting close to the end of this. I want to thank you for being here and listening to some of the things that we said. And I know I'm talking more than Keith, but he was wishing he had the book, the first book that he read, because it had
I
all
didn't
those
get
things.
to read it. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. And I just wanted to make sure that he could explain the muscle testing, and yes, you can do it with yourself. And you could and you could almost calibrate your day. And I think, Jane, you said that in the morning you consciously calibrate, or you look at your energy levels and so on. Just another interesting thing to do if you're interested in that sort of thing. Or some people pull a card for the day, or they do a meditation in the morning, things like that. So yes, you're right, Hypnicity, it did draw from the headlines. You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Keith. He's up north this weekend, and I appreciate him coming on with me. He's got the Freddie Mercury Hawaiian shirt on that I bought him. Isn't it wonderful? Has cats all over it. Oh, yeah. Okay. There you go. She is. Please do more with us. It was nice to have you here. Very good. I enjoyed it as well. Yes. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you, Oil Painter. Thanks, everybody. Oh, Arlene, you use muscle testing for healing. It's wonderful.
There
It's
you
really
go.
good. Yep. Yep. So I think he'll be back, maybe a little more prepared, but I asked him to do this. And so that's why he came on with me, because he was very compliant. I thought that was nice of him, because it's his day off. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. We appreciate you as well. And it was wonderful to have you here to be with us. Take care of yourself and have a
Bye.
beautiful day. Bye-bye. Bye, Keith.